Hey there! In this video I want to address some questions to the theists who watch my videos. And I'm saying this just in case you didn't figure it out from the title, which would mean you're not that bright. The reason I'm interested in your answers is because I used to think about those things a lot when I was a theist, and even more when I was becoming an agnostic. So if you're willing to take the time and answer them, I will really appreciate it. First question refers to hell. I am assuming you all have children or parents or brothers, friends and so on who you love dearly. Let's say that some of these people go astray from your religion. So you are a devoted Christian or Muslim, whatever, but some of the people you love very much don't share your religious beliefs anymore, and according to your religion they will end up in hell. How you think you will be able to enjoy eternity in paradise when you know that your loved ones are suffering unimaginable tortures forever in hell? Wouldn't that be tormenting for you? Wouldn't that prevent you from being happy, which is, kind of the whole point of being in heaven? God is supposed to be omniscient. Then how come so many times he doesn't seem to have a clue about what's gonna happen? For instance, in the Bible, God tells Abraham that he heard that the people of Sodom are wicked, and that he, God, will go down to earth himself to see if that's true. So how come an all-knowing God has to double-check things? Or let's take another example from the Quran. There were some Jews living by the sea, and God decided to test their faith by making all the fish go away during the week. The only day when the fish would appear was the Sabbath day, when the Jews were not allowed to work. And that was God's test to see if the Jews are strong enough in their faith not to fish on Sabbath day. And of course, some of the Jews didn't cope very well with starving, and they went on fishing on Sabbath day, and as a punishment, God turned them into monkeys and pigs. Now, I'm not gonna comment on that, even though I'm very tempted to, but my question is this: why would an all-knowing God have to make up these stupid tests if he already knew what was gonna happen? This is about the Genesis, and it's actually a very simple question. God told Adam and Eve that they could eat from every tree of the garden except from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Eve got tempted by the snake, and she and Adam ended up eating from that tree, and we all know what happened after that. My question is this: how could a just God punish them for something they did before they had any knowledge about good and evil? Even if God told them what to do, how could they be held accountable for their actions before they had any basic understanding of what is right or wrong? What happens to the people who never heard about your religion? Only last year they discovered in the Amazon jungle a tribe that was untouched by the civilization. Those people have never heard of the Bible or Jesus or Muhammad or any of that. So what happens to people like that? Do they go directly to hell for something they had no knowledge of? Or will they be judged solely by their actions, what they did in this life? Because I see a problem with both options. In the first case, how could a just God condemn to eternal suffering someone who is ignorant of the rules he is supposed to follow? And in the second case, if those people were to be judged solely by their actions, doesn't that mean that preaching the word of God makes more people go to hell? I mean, if you are a good person but ignorant of God, you will end up in heaven, right? On the other hand, if you are a good person who has heard of God but rejected him, you will end up in hell. You realize that if you will not speak of God again, you will have much more people going to heaven. And the final question. Please, just tell me, how do you justify an infinite punishment for a finite crime? Yes, I am again talking about the hell. Let's say you have a child, and you tell the kid that there are some cookies on the table, but he is not allowed to touch them. But he sees the cookies right there on the table, and he gets tempted, so he eats some of them anyway. So what do you do as a loving parent? You take a butcher's knife and cut both his hands off. You give him a permanent punishment for a finite disobedience. Just tell me if in your opinion that sounds fair. So those are my questions, and like I said, I would really appreciate some answers. If you don't want to answer one of the questions, just skip it and go through the rest of them. Or if you want to answer just one question, please do so. There are no rules. Also, if you are not a theist anymore but you used to be one, did you have those kind of questions back then? Or what other things bothered you about your religion when you were a believer? That's about it, and hope to hear from you. Peace out.